The disgraced political consultancy Cambridge Analytica's involvement in President Trump's election has dominated global headlines for a week. Now, the scandal has come to hit India. Christopher Wylie, the whistleblower who blew the lid off the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal, has made a massive revelation. During his deposition before the UK Parliamentary Committee, Wylie named the Indian National Congress and said that his former firm had extensively worked in India. He told British lawmakers, and I quote, "I believe their client was Congress in India, but I know they have done all kinds of projects, both regional. I don't remember a national project, but I know regionally. India is so big that one state can be as big as Britain, but they do have offices there. They do have staff there." End quote. Joining me on the broadcast right now is WION's bureau chief in London, Mandy Clark. Mandy, this is a huge expose of sorts. India, of course, grappling with the whole idea that Cambridge Analytica might have been involved in some way in the democratic process. And Christopher Wylie sort of making things clear for us now.
Yeah, you know, it was almost mentioned just in passing, but he certainly emphasized that it wasn't a small bit of work that Cambridge Analytica was doing in India. He emphasized that they did have an office and pointed out that India is one of the most prolific countries that use Facebook. It isn't clear what work exactly they did. They didn't get into that detail, but it will certainly likely cause for further inquiry into India to find out exactly what work they did, how it was performed, and if they were also using so-called illegal practices that they're being accused of using in the Trump campaign. Of course, Cambridge Analytica has been denying any wrongdoing, but it certainly puts a fresh spotlight on India in terms of election campaigning and also the use of social media and how that all links together.
Absolutely. And of course, this is already causing a big storm here in India, Mandy. But why exactly do you think the UK Parliamentary Committee was more curious, so to speak, to know about how Cambridge Analytica was operating in a different democracy such as India?
India has one of the biggest democracies in the world. To influence India would be very serious. Of course, it also shows the global stretch that Cambridge Analytica really has. It's not just Western powers. It's India. It could be even further than that. So it just shows the scope and the reach and how if they're using the techniques that they're accused of using, how dangerous it could be for democracy. And Christopher Wylie made a point. The reason he came out to whistleblow is he believes that it is deeply dangerous for democracy because people don't know that they are being influenced by these unseen players on their social media.
Fair enough. Stay with me, Mandy. Ramesh Ramachandran, WION senior correspondent, also joining in on the conversation from the newsroom. Ramesh, this couldn't have come at a worse time, perhaps, for the Congress. Elections are just around the corner in one of its last bastions in Karnataka. And, of course, the knives are out for the party already.
Indeed. What this does, Aisha, is to question the Congress's plank or the strategy of accusing the BJP of colluding with Cambridge Analytica. Now the story turned on its head. The Congress stands accused of colluding with Cambridge Analytica, and so claims Christopher Wylie in his testimony to the British lawmakers. He says very clearly that Cambridge Analytica, one, had office in India, it had staff in India, and that they were involved with the Congress party in managing some regional elections, to quote, to paraphrase actually Christopher Wylie there. He did not refer to anything national election per se, but regional elections, possibly yes.
All right, stay with me a while longer, Mandy and Ramesh. Let's quickly run our viewers through some of the reactions that have come in. First up, of course, the BJP's very own Ravi Shankar Prasad, who's spoken up on this entire fracas. Listen into what he said.
The whistleblower of the Cambridge Analytica, Mr. Wylie, has publicly confirmed that Congress party indeed was one of their clients. Now, there is a public acknowledgement of this fact. Mr. Rahul Gandhi has been trying to divert attention. Today, he stands exposed. But this public admission has very sinister implications.
Right. Let's go back to my colleagues, Mandy and Ramesh, both with us on the broadcast. Ramesh, to you first. Of course, when this entire scandal came to light, there was a lot of exchanging of barbs between the Congress and the BJP. And a lot of people accused both parties of forgetting the implications that this scandal has for the process of democracy altogether. Do you think that is really going to be held ransom once again to this fighting between the two biggest parties in the country?
Well, it's inevitable, Aisha, that politics will take over this entire controversy, that both the Congress and the BJP will like to milk this issue going forward. But clearly the Congress seems to be on the back foot on this issue, especially after this claim that the BJP, it was the BJP which colluded with Cambridge Analytica in the elections in recent years in India. But that fact stands proven wrong. It's the Congress which had links with Cambridge Analytica. And to my mind, this will impinge on the Congress elections and strategy going forward, especially in light of recent elections that are planned in various states across the country.
Fair enough. Mandy, of course, this has blown the lid off of a number of campaigns. Brexit too has come under, let's say, the aegis of everything that Christopher Wylie has spoken up about. How exactly do we look at this for our deposition by Wylie today in front of that parliamentary committee? What are the implications, so to speak, of everything that he's dished dirt on?
Well, it certainly implies that it gives the parliamentarians now an ability to reach out targets like Facebook, calling back Cambridge Analytica. He has made very clear accusations to both parties, saying Facebook turned a blind eye. They knew what was going on, but they're more interested in making money. Cambridge Analytica broke the rules. So with that information, they're going to probe deeper. And in a very real term, Cambridge Analytica could face legal action in the UK if it's proved accurate. Of course, as we've said, both sides are denying any culpability, but certainly they will be facing much tougher questions. They wanted Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, to face questions. He's turned that down.
Right.
But
he said that either his CTO or Chief Product Officer is going to represent on his behalf. I'm sorry to cut you short there. Stay with me, Mandy. Priyanka Chaturvedi, the Congress's spokesperson, is joining us on the phone line. Priyanka, thank you very much for speaking with us here at WION. If I can just ask you to react to the statement by Mr. Wylie. He names your party, saying that it was Cambridge Analytica's client in India. Do you have a response? All right, we're trying to reconnect with Priyanka. Let me go back to Ramesh on that note. Ramesh, while we're waiting for Priyanka Chaturvedi to rejoin us on the conversation, the other point, I suppose, that comes up from all of this is that he says very categorically that he's not certain about about Cambridge Analytica's position nationally when it comes to India, but regionally, yes, he can say that there was work done with a party or parties in India. Do you see the wiggle room for the Congress sort of squeezing out on the back of this statement that he's made a while ago?
Not likely, Aisha, especially after Christopher Wylie named the Congress in so many words in his deposition to the UK lawmakers in London just a short while ago. He is very clear, very pithy in his submission. He says Cambridge Analytica had an office in India, it had staff in India, and that Cambridge Analytica helped the Congress party in some regional elections. He did not say which ones or where in India, but he did refer to regional elections in India, not so much national elections, and we don't know yet the timeline of all this, the various depositions that he's made.
Right, Ramesh, allow me to come in there. Priyanka is back with us. Priyanka Chaturvedi, spokesperson for the Congress, joining us. Priyanka, thank you very much for speaking with us at WION. If you could just react for us to this admission by Christopher Wylie naming your party as a client of Cambridge Analytica.
No, I'd like to correct you on that question. Christopher Wylie has gone on record to say it might have been the Congress and he might have documents to prove so. He has no documents. He hasn't gone on to claim that. And neither has he claimed that it is the Congress they were working with. However, with confidence, he has claimed that they were working on some regional projects and they had a big staff and a lot of offices in India. And they worked on regional projects, not national projects. And we all know the regional projects which were also on Cambridge Analytica OBI's website, which categorically mentioned 4 state elections that they worked along with the BJP, namely Maharashtra, Haryana, Jharkhand and Delhi. This also goes on, this is something which is available on their website, which perhaps they have pulled down now. Thirdly, An Indian co-founder of Cambridge Analytica that went by the name of SCL, Avnish Rai, an Indian whistleblower, has gone on to record to say how Alexander, the founder of Cambridge Analytica, was desperately trying to sabotage the Congress elections in 2014 at the behest of the Bharatiya Janata Party, who had taken them on this project so that they could infiltrate the Congress campaign and sabotage it, is something that is very well known by an Indian whistleblower. Fourthly, despite their attempt at sabotaging the Congress election, we did not even interact with Cambridge Analytica then. So I will again go on record to say that we have no business relations with Cambridge Analytica. As much as we have been claiming for past 3 days, that is where we stand. And if there is any evidence to the contrary, I would request the law minister who made these allegations on the party to come up with evidence, hard-based evidence. Investigating agencies are under the government.
Sure, Priyanka, allow me to come in.
Go ahead and investigate.
Allow me to come in. You've put all 4 points across quite clearly. Aman Sinha, lawyer and spokesperson for the BJP, is also joining me. Aman, I'm sure you've heard into what Priyanka said, her position as far as her party is concerned. Can I ask you to react, please?
So actually, I couldn't catch, what was coming from the other side. But I can tell you that after the statement of whistleblower, the testimony that he has given, it is clearly goes on to establish the fact that the Congress spokespersons were saying something which was completely bereft of truth. And not only that, the Congress party was busy snooping and busy, siphoning of data and misusing it. That is absolutely evident from the testimony of the whistleblower, what he has deposed. And therefore, the Congress party should be candid and honest enough to acknowledge that the only client, in fact, named by whistleblower in his testimony was the Congress party. And now Congress party seems to be suggesting several other things.
Right.
That is quite perplexing and surprising. The fact of the matter remains.
Right, Aman, but can I ask you, there was this whole OBI website that was taken down. One of the clients that were mentioned there, yes, Congress was mentioned, as was the JDU, as was your party as well. And Christopher Wylie today has said, I believe their client was Congress in India. Do you think that, it might as well, at this moment, it does seem like Christopher Wylie has named Congress, but he doesn't categorically end right there. I mean, there could be other players involved as well.
No, but we'll have to go by what he has said. And what he has said exactly is that the client that they had in India was the Congress party. So therefore, that is what, what has come out of his testimony. And this is what BJP had stated earlier. And now it is clearly established and clinched from what testimony that he has deposed. And therefore, the Congress party should be, candid and honest enough to admit that what they were saying was completely bereft and devoid of truth. And they owe an apology to the nation, not only for misleading the people of this country, but also trying to snoop on them and trying to siphon off their data.
All right, Aman Sinha of the BJP, thank you for giving us your perspective. Priyanka Chaturvedi is no longer with us on the conversation. She, of course, making a point quite clear, Ramesh. She says that that Christopher Wylie hasn't categorically said that the Congress was the only or the only client of Cambridge Analytica in India, but that he believes that it was a client. Do you think that might be trying to use semantics a bit too far in favor of her party?
Well, there's no denying, Aisha, that politics will take over now that Christopher Wylie's deposition is doing the rounds here in India. But like you said, I don't want to get into semantics here or to hair-splitting what exactly he meant when he said that the Congress is or might be one of its clients in India. But the fact remains that Christopher Wylie has indicated in so many words that Congress was among Cambridge Analytica's clients. It had an office in India, it had staff in India, and that Cambridge Analytica had some role to play in a number of regional, quote-unquote, regional projects in India, not necessarily national elections, but regional elections. Definitely, yes.
All right. And do you see this having some sort of political fallout given what's happening in terms of elections in the country? Do you think people are tuned in enough into this entire controversy to take note of the fact that a whistleblower has named one of the major parties in the country?
Well, Aisha, the nub of the matter is as follows. It's very sinister that not only is personal information being leaked out of Facebook to a private company or a third party, they're using psychological profiling, and in Christopher Wylie's very own words, psychometric inventories and psychological profiling using online data. Now, this is not as harmless as it seems to be. There is definitely a data science at play here which might infringe upon the privacy of any and every individual who might have been one of the 50 million users on Facebook at that given point of time. So clearly it raises more questions than it answers, actually, and this will not die down anytime soon.
Absolutely. Mandy, and to go back to the deposition, and earlier on when he started speaking at the parliamentary committee, Christopher Wylie also mentioned the role of the University of Cambridge's psychology department and how that helped in forming these sort of psychological profiles of these voters. So this calls into question the integrity of a number of institutions, one as hallowed as the University of Cambridge itself.
Well, I think that Dr. Coogan, who he really based the research on, felt like he was the scapegoat. Really, they were just conducting research, and the department in Cambridge didn't make any money of it. So I think what came out more was that Cambridge wasn't really aware of what they had and how it could be used, and there was a lack of oversight on how private companies were using what they developed. It certainly brings down the reputation of the university, and it doesn't help that Cambridge Analytica, which is a private company not linked to the university, has the name Cambridge. So all over it, it's bad news for the university. But it goes to show that researchers and professors, even though they might be doing pure research, they also have a level of responsibility to see when they develop these apps and hand it to private companies, that they have to follow the trail and understand that they are putting other people's data at risk and how they can be manipulated.
Absolutely.
So certainly it has. Right. It has brought down that reputation.
And that whole question, I think, beyond the political slugfest that this has become in India, I think it calls into question, really speaking, the roles and responsibilities of not just social media giants, but, the web seems to be cast quite wide as far as that goes. I'll come back to both of you in just a second. We've been able to access that exact statement that Christopher Wylie made to the parliamentary committee in the United Kingdom at the House of Commons, where he names India's Congress party. Listen in to that particular statement.
Alexander Cogans there are who've worked with Cambridge Analytica. You focus on the world's biggest democracy with lots and lots of elections all the time, India, as being a prime source of business, wouldn't you? And you mentioned that they'd done quite a bit of work in India. Could you just describe what you're aware of?
I believe their client was Congress, but I know that they've done all kinds of projects, both regional. I don't think they've done I don't remember a national project, but I know regionally. I mean, India's
different states.
Yeah, I mean, India is so big that one state can be as big as Britain.
Mm.
All right, just 50 seconds of his statement, but enough to cause a political firestorm in India. And of course, it's sort of made its way over to where else? Social media. WION's Molly Gambhir, my colleague, is joining us on the broadcast as well. Molly, take us through how this is sort of making an impact on social media.
Absolutely, Aisha. Now, we have, of course, been tracking very closely this scandal as it has unfolded over the past week. It has, of course, dominated headlines the world over for the last few days. With each passing day, there has been a new facet of this controversy that has come to light. Let's just take our viewers now through how people, of course, have been raising many of those questions that remain unanswered and have been putting the Congress in quite a fix ever since that revelation that we just heard coming in from the whistleblower in this case came to light. Christopher Wylie making that revelation, which, of course, has stirred a hornet's nest in India. One sample of that anger that is doing the rounds, of course, coming in from Advaita Kala. Time for the Congress to issue an explanation. This is not a political rival speaking, but a whistleblower deposing in front of lawmakers in the UK. Cambridge Analytica has been accused of serious privacy violations and divisive campaign strategy in Kenya and Trump 2016. Aisha, you know, this is one sample of the resentment and the multiple questions that have been raised by many ever since this revelation came to light. Because remember, this of course comes in the midst of the back and forth which has been continuing between the BJP and the Congress. What many are asking is, why did the Congress in the first place, when this controversy began, deny using services of Cambridge Analytica? The next tweet that we have for you is asking and saying it's straight from the horse's mouth, Congress employed Cambridge Analytica. The next tweet that we have is from Gitika. Cambridge Analytica whistleblower Chris Wylie names Congress as its client in India, means Congress sold our data without our consent to manipulate elections. Hello, Rahul Gandhi. What do you have to say about data privacy, spying, snooping? What should we delete now? Congress. That is a question that's been raised by Gitika. A secular hater says the whistleblower has stated before the UK parliamentarians that the Congress was a client of Cambridge Analytica. Where will they hide now? Now, these are, of course, just some of the questions, Aisha, that are doing the rounds. The resentment and the anger is palpable amongst not just Twitter users, but many across the country who are trying to ask, if indeed Congress did use the services of Cambridge Analytica, what are the implications and why did the party in the first place deny having used the services of that firm?
Absolutely. That is a big question. I'm going to take that across to Ramesh in just a second. Before that, though, let's listen in to Christopher Wylie's statement again. Molly, thank you very much for bringing us those reactions from social media. And this is the statement from the man himself at the UK Parliamentary Committee hearing today. Listen in.
Alexander Cogans there are who've worked with Cambridge Analytica. You focus on the world's biggest democracy with lots and lots of elections all the time, India, as being a prime source of business, wouldn't you? And you mentioned that they've done quite a bit of work in India. Could you just describe what you're aware of?
I believe their client was Congress, but I know that they've done all kinds of projects, both regional. I don't think they've done I don't remember a national project, but I know regionally. I mean, India is
different states.
Yeah, I mean, India is so big that one state can be as big as Britain.
Right, and Ramesh, a lot of people might look at this as an own goal by the Congress. They first denied altogether any sort of, association with Cambridge Analytica. And if there was an assist, so to speak, it looks like Christopher Wylie's provided it this time around. Is that really going to be the crux of the questions, the criticism that the Congress is going to face? Why deny it when now Christopher Wylie's come out and said they did in fact have a relationship with Cambridge Analytica?
Well, Aisha, the fact is that there are many layers to this developing story. And there are many moving parts of the story, the American saying goes. There's the American election of 2016 in which Cambridge Analytica tried to help Trump win the election, which they did eventually. Now the scene shifts to India, the biggest democracy on earth, where Cambridge Analytica had an office, had a staff, and they also did projects for regional elections in India, in Congress's own words, in Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Delhi and Haryana, which, by the way, they lost. So a lot of questions remain unanswered. But the fact is that, as Christopher Wylie himself said, Steve Bannon, Christopher Nix of the Cambridge Analytica company, and Robert Mercer, the co-CEO of hedge fund Renaissance Technologies, all three were the moving forces behind Cambridge Analytica. And there are links which one needs to explore going forward between them on the one hand and the Cambridge Analytica's office in India, in which Congress was one of its many clients.
Right. We'll leave it at that. Ramesh, thanks very much for joining us with that perspective. Also, Mandy Clark in London. Thank you both for speaking with us here on Fine Print. Before we go, though, here's another listen-in one more time to Christopher Wylie's statement on India's Congress Party. Listen in to what he said.
Alexander Cogans there are who've worked with Cambridge Analytica. You focus on the world's biggest democracy with lots of elections all the time. India as being a prime source of business, wouldn't you? And you mentioned that they've done quite a bit of work in India. Could you just describe what you're aware of?
I believe their client was Congress, but I know that they've done all kinds of projects, both regional. I don't think they've done I don't remember a national project, but I know regionally. I mean, India's
different states.
Yeah, I mean, India is so big that one state can be as big as Britain.
All right, short statement, but the implications are going to be big.